Hello, welcome to the last module of this MOOC. In this module, we are looking at materials. Why? As facade design engineers, we design and build building envelope components and facades. To do so, we need materials, of course. So it's very important as a facade design engineer that you understand, are able to define and choose along the available materials in the market for your facade design application. In this video, we're gonna go through the key concept that it's important to remember about materials. Before then you go into the detailed explanation and definitions in the material that is also available in this module, meaning other video lectures or handouts on the topic, and of course the learning activities. So, materials. When there are many available materials in the market and in nature, there are four key aspects that we want to remember when thinking about materials. The first one is what is the performance that we're seeking from our component or element that we are designing and for which we are choosing a material. The second key concept is the process. What is the extraction manufacturing process that is going to be involved when developing the material for the component? The performance and the process are strictly connected to the properties. What are the material properties we are looking for? So this is the key aspects that we need to consider discussing materials. What are the properties of the material? In combination to performance, properties and processes, other key aspects are cost and environmental impact. As environmental impact, there are many aspects as well to be considered. We don't go into the detail in this video, but remember that this could be about the energy intensity of a specific extraction and manufacturing process in material production, and therefore the related carbon embodied that is related to a material, but also other more general aspects like recyclability, ease of disassemble, maintenance, life of a component. So, properties. What is a material property? A property describes a behavior of a facade of a material in a specific context. For instance, economic and environmental properties are price, recyclability, sustainability, carbon footprint. Then there are mechanical properties that are related to the overall mechanical performance of a component or material, and these are, for instance, the elasticity modulus, density, yield and tensile strength, hardness, fracture toughness, creep strength, or even damping. Then there are thermal properties. These properties are related to the thermal performance of a material. Therefore, the performance of a material when there is a variation in temperature. For instance, other properties vary with temperature, or there is a heat transfer process involved. Examples of thermal properties are the thermal conductivity, which describes how easy it is for the heat to transfer across a material, the thermal expansion coefficient, which describes the relationship between the density change of a material with temperature, or the diffusivity, which is also a very important characteristic that describe how the heat transfer process happens across a material. Another large family and very important part of properties are related to the electric, magnetic, optical performance of a material. For instance, electric resistivity or electric conductance, but also the electric constant of a material, the magnetic properties of a material, or the optical properties in terms of reflectance, transmittance, or absorptance of a material. Then there is a last family that is related to chemical properties, which are the properties that describe the performance of a material during a chemical process. And there are many chemical processes in nature that happens in ordinary life, also with facades. An example is corrosion, or for instance, the interaction between a facade component and an acidic element. Now with climate change, that our cities are experiencing a larger number in frequency of acidic rains, chemical properties are also very important. And then there are, of course, other type of properties that are not mechanical, thermal, electromagnetic, or chemical, and are, for instance, aesthetic properties or process-related, in terms of, for instance, ease of manufacture, color, texture, and feel. So when we look at these properties, we can then define different families of materials that are in particular classified because of the differences that exist between mechanical, chemical, thermal, and electromagnetic. And these are the metals, the polymers, the elastomers, the glasses, the ceramics, and materials that are a combination of these, which are called hybrid. We have many examples in facades of this. For instance, metal. Metal is a typical example of the family of materials that are generally applied for structural components, thanks to the great mechanical performance of metals. And this, for instance, relates to steel, aluminum, that are often used to create the frame and the malleum, because this component, the main purpose is to resist. Then, of course, I can choose across different materials depending on the environmental impact or the cost. Ceramics. Ceramics are often present in facades, in the cladding. We have many examples of ceramic tiles in facade cladding. Another example instead is glass. Glasses, the glazing is a typical example of application of glass in facade design industry. Why? Because of its fantastic optical properties, which allow the transmission of daylight and therefore access to daylight in view. This is the main reason why glass is so used in facade design. Gaskets. The gaskets, as you know, are a key component to close up the facade, but also the property that is required here is also flexibility and a certain level of elasticity, but also low weight. Therefore, gaskets are often used made of elastomers. Then we often have examples of plastics and polymers in facades, either in other components of the frame, within the section of a facade, or even in the cladding. We have often many examples of polymers that are used for some aesthetic or architectural intent. So as you can see, a facade is an assembly of different components with very different properties and material, due to the fact that a facade has many functions to exhibit. Some of these materials are available in nature, some others are human-made. And in the market we can find a combination of them. In each of these families we can give an example of a natural material or a human-enabled one. For instance, metals. Copper is available in nature, while steel is a human-made material. In terms of polymers, wood is a natural material, while acrylic is a human-made one. Stones, in the family of ceramics, is available in the nature, while cement is made by us, is a human-made material. Hybrid materials, of course, tend to be just human-made because, by definition, they are a combination of different materials not available in nature. So this, in a nutshell, gives you a key understanding of what makes a material different from another one. Is there a good or a bad material? No, it depends totally on the final application and on the trade-off that you want to address and that you want to meet as a facade design engineer. There are performances, there are costs, and there is environmental impact, among other key aspects. And of course, different materials will score differently in this factor, but the overall selection process will have to take into account all of these factors. And now we can look into each material into detail. So have a look and good luck!